Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is my first attempt at doing one of these screencast-o-matics. This will be the presentation of my unit that we did for our BYOD class this year. And my unit's title, it's actually a problem-based learning unit. It's called If a Tree Falls in a Forest. Date of implementation before I ever had BYOD was back in April 2018. I did it with my class. They loved all the hands-on stuff, and they ended up really enjoying it. But I do plan on, at my next school, where that may be in the fall of 2018, we're going to go ahead and implement it with BYOD. So anyway, as you look in here, you see the title over here, my implementation dates, developed by yours truly. And then I used a setup that I found on, I think it was gmu.com or .gov or something like that. They gave me a template to lay out a problem-based learning unit. The first part of it is the overview, where we have the topic, which is environmental science. The theme is effect of human impact on a forest ecosystem. And then the scenario. The scenario is a lumber company has just won a bid to cut down a local forest. With the potential to disrupt the habitats of many different species, you have been asked to come up with a plan to relocate any endangered species in the area. The problem question presented with this is, how do we minimize the destruction done by human activities in the forest ecosystem? The students play their own role. They get to be ecological experts who work with WS, otherwise known as Wildlife Services. And their culminating activity, or the product they're going to produce at the end of the unit, they're going to have to come up with a plan or workable solution to present to the lumber company and the federal government on how to relocate any endangered species in the target area before the felling begins. Right, next up is the unit background. It pretty much explains that this is a 2-week unit created for 7th grade students to address Kentucky NGSS standards, MSESS 3-3. The scenario and problem question for this unit are focused around coming up with a plan to minimize human impact on a local forest ecosystem. The students, in their role as ecological experts working for Wildlife Services, will walk through several other questions in order to help them to develop their solutions. So basically, I just gave you a layout of all the lesson plans included here. First off, the students are going to survey the characteristics of the forest. In lesson 1, which should take about 1 class period, they're going to end up creating a map of the affected area using Google Earth. This is where they first use their personal devices, or if they don't have personal devices, they can use their iPads in the classroom, or the classroom produced ones anyway. They're going to go ahead and go to the Google Earth app, which we featured in the digital toolbox. They're going to break up into small groups of 3 or 4, and they're going to use Google Earth to locate the forest in which the lumber company is going to be felling trees, or the deforestation is going to begin, and see if they can locate any other geologic formations in that area. Once they have that data gathered, they're going to go ahead and collaborate, pick some sort of collaboration tool, whether it be Padlet, Google Docs, or anything else where they can get together and write their ideas together. They're going to use that, and they're going to create a map to cover a small section of the much larger forest. And each of the groups of students are going to go ahead and break up into those small groups, and each little group will cover a different section of the forest itself. Okay, so that next day, once they have that figured out, they go in and they're going to use their devices with this app that I found called iNaturalist. Let me see right there on my thing. It's a little birdie, a little green birdie. Anyway, iNaturalist is this app where you can actually document any organism that you find in any area by taking a photo of it. Once you have that photo, you can look through a bunch of other choices that other scientists, as well as other observers, have found in their region to see if it matches. And once it matches, it marks on Google Maps where you are located and where you have located that organism. Once they get as many organisms in their section of the forest gathered up as they possibly can, they're going to write down all their observations in their collaborative app. Next lesson, they're going to go ahead and use Google Earth again to go ahead and discover other regions throughout the world where they can relocate any possible endangered species that they may encounter in the forest, or any other wildlife or plant life that they can relocate before the lumber company gets to work. and then they'll record their findings once again into their collaborative app. Finally, they're going to go ahead and examine the human impacts on the forest. So during this class period, they're going to go ahead and analyze the collected and data and research species to discover which ones are endangered. And I provided a bunch of resources that they can use for that as well, as far as the World Wildlife Foundation, Wildlife Services, the U.S. Wildlife Services, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, stuff like that. They can go ahead and use those apps to discover which animals and which plants are considered endangered. And they can go ahead and also discover the process in which a species becomes labeled endangered. So after this all happens, the students are once again going to record their findings into their collaborative app. The next one, they go ahead and, well, like I said, they already discovered which animals were endangered. Now they have to discover how to relocate those endangered animals. So they can look up different areas to go to, but Wildlife Services provides them with enough detail to relocate their wild animals and their plant species. Once again, they'll record their stuff into their app. And the final lesson, which will take about 3 to 4 class periods, this is their, according to Bloom's taxonomy, their creative piece, the product they create based on all their data that they've already collected throughout the past couple of days. So students will use all their resource and experimental data to create a relocation plan, which they're going to go ahead and present to the federal government as well as the lumber company itself. And in order to do this, they're going to go ahead and, well, once they do that, hopefully the lumber company gives them enough time to relocate all the species of both plants and animals before they start knocking down the trees. So they'll collaborate together as groups to create a product of technology based on a product of their choice, whether that's a video, iMovie, presentation, Prezi, etc., to present to the lumber company and the federal government. The requirements for that is they need to present whether or not they found any endangered plant or animal species in the forest. They need to create the plan itself or the workable solution on how to relocate the certain species that they found, if they found any certain species. And they need to come up with a plan on how to minimize environmental damage on the forest ecosystem when the trees start falling. Once that's all said or done, they can go ahead and present that to the class, and they'll be graded on that. So the reflections, the students themselves will create a journal entry on Google Docs to reflect on the process they went through and to come up with a solution to the real-world problem and answer the following questions. Are there any other solutions to the problem? What would your plan include if no endangered species were found? And what are some ways humans can minimize their impact on the environment in this area? This next section are the essential questions that were asked in order for the students to complete this unit. The big question, or the big problematic question here, is how do we minimize the destruction done by human activities to a forest ecosystem? And then they're going to ask questions that help them to answer the big questions, such as, what is a forest ecosystem? What are the characteristics of a forest? And then what is the human impact on a forest? Then under each of those 3 questions, you have a couple minor questions that actually address the standards that go along with the unit, such as what is a forest ecosystem? Since I teach in Kentucky, we go by the Next Generation Science Standards. In this case, it's a middle school Life Science 2.A for what is a forest ecosystem. The same thing below, it's what plants and animals live in a forest. That's Life Science 1.A. Underneath, what are the characteristics of a forest? What abiotic factors affect a forest ecosystem? That's Life Science 2.A. And where on Earth are forests located? That's Earth and Space Science 3.A. And then under what is the human impact on a forest? It's how does deforestation affect an ecosystem? That's covered by Earth and Space Science 3.C. And what organisms are endangered and why? That's Life Science 4.C. If you scroll down to the bottom here, I also wrote down all the standards that I just went over in the question section up there, the question map. And these are what are actually written for them in the Next Generation Science Standards on Kentucky's website. Now down below here, the different resources I used, such as this first one is that's how they relocate endangered species. We got the iNaturalist.org site that you can go get the app from. You can also get it from the Google or the App Store. Google Earth app, and then Padlet.com was actually introduced recently to me by one of my other classes. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm using it to collaborate with a teacher from another country. The Smithsonian site tells you a lot about how animals become endangered, and so does this one here. Here's your World Wildlife Organization that gives you an entire list of endangered animals and even extinct animals. This does the same thing for plants, and of course your Google Docs, which is one of the collaboration tools. Now, my reflection as I went through this was that I do teach science in the way that I wanted to learn science as a kid. My students experience as many hands-on experiences that I can provide them with. In the past, I've implemented the same unit, like I said at the beginning, without the addition of apps or personal devices, basically because it would be difficult for them to carry around their Chromebooks and be like, hey, get a picture of this, picture of that. Anyway, since most teens excel at texting, they can easily record their notes and observations they obtain in the field on their own device. In order to make this a stronger unit, I truly believe that I need to become a lot more familiar with some of the newer apps that are out there to help them or to aid them on their journey to discover nature around them. All right, guys, I hope this was enjoyable for you. Thanks. One more thing before I go. Don't forget to leave your comments down there at the bottom on the discussion forum. I'd really appreciate to hear from everybody. Have a good one.